Hi, hello, I'm Preethi Sudhakar. For all HR professionals and no senior leader who was no just forming the ICC for the very first time, I would like to give you four important tips on how to form your ICC in a very effective way, internal complaints committee. So what is an internal complaints committee? As per Posh Act 2013, any organization which has 10 or more employees will have to form their internal committee for handling complaints regarding sexual harassment of women at workplace. So this is a statutory obligation that every organization has to do as per Posh Act 2013. So if you're forming your ICC for the very first time, then there are four things that you will have to consider. The first thing is that you will have to appoint a presiding officer who only have to be a woman in a very senior role or who's very senior in the organization. Okay, who is able to take up management decisions, who's handling a team, so things like that. So you will have to choose a presiding officer. Only a woman can be a presiding officer. This is the very first thing. And the second important thing is that no, and committee will have to have at least four minimum members, including the presiding officer and the external member. So external member is someone who comes out of the organization and who supports the organization in making it a safe, secure place, like participating in the quarterly review meetings, conducting training workshop, training the ICC, then also preparing the annual audit POSH report for the organization. So, other than the external member and the presiding officer, minimum there has to be at least two members who comes internally from the organization. This is the minimum number what law says, but law does not restrict on the maximum number. So, an ideal IC can have about 6 to 7 members in a panel. So, now the third important thing is that now who are you going to choose as your internal members in the IC committee? This is a very, very important aspect that every HR professional and every organizational leader has to understand, because in most organizations I see that the senior executives occupy the membership in the IC. So here, after, if in case an IC is going to investigate a case, handle a case, then finally it is the IC which only recommends about the course of action. Now, who finally takes the action against the respondent, or if the accusation has been proved right, it is the senior management who takes the decision. So there would be a conflict of interest wherein which the senior management is also the decision making authority and also the investigating party in the IC. So please avoid placing any senior executives or leaders in the IC, especially the HR head or HR in the VP level, who's in senior most human resource professional. Their duties and responsibility is it's a little divergent from what an IC has to do. So they have their own set of rules to set up the discipline aspects in a workplace and no issues relating to workplace harassment, things like that. But when it comes to sexual harassment, for an effective IC, please do not involve any senior leaders in the or no, the executives who are the decision makers in the organization. Do not involve them, because ultimately they are the ones who are going to take a decision based on the recommendation of IC. This is the third important aspect. So how are you going to take up members for your IC? So first you can think of the bottom up approach, wherein you are taking members from the executive level, middle management level, and little bit off from the senior people who's been in the organization for a quite long time. So they know the culture of the organization, how it works, and every aspect of that. So similarly, have an HR executive probably in the IC, and that too I would recommend a woman in the HR executive level or HR middle management level to be a part of IC, because these are very, very sensitive issues. So when a sexual harassment complaint happens, it will be very easy for an HR who's a woman who's in the executive or middle management level to bridge the gap of being an HR as well as being the IC member. And what is other fourth important aspect is, according to law says the total number of male members in the panel should not exceed 50% of the overall composition of the IC. So here I see few organizations who do not know this proportion, wherein which in some cases wherein which the organization itself has very limited women employees. They have hardly one or two, and they have no other course, no setting up with other male members who are exceeding the limit of women members, which includes the presiding officer and the external member. So in that case, look out for an external member who is also a woman, and try to occupy women as possible. They can women and men ratio in an IC panel, including the presiding officer, who definitely have to be a woman, and the external member should not. It can be a 50-50%, but men should not exceed 50% of the overall IC composition. So in this way, I also know this is also another area wherein which they have 5 members who was women in the panel and just 1 male member in the panel. So for having an effective IC which is free from bias, it's non-judgmental, wherein which the respondent or the other aspects of complainant has to be heard with their voice has to be equal, and it has to be heard equally. Giving them equal opportunity is very, very important when it comes to IC or investigating a case. So in that case, please include male members also. 50-50 or somewhere in the ratio, 40% of male members and 60% of women. That would be an ideal IC. So I wish you all the very best to set up your compliance with full care, caution, and the same way making a very respectable and gender bias, and as well as a very productive, happy workplace. So thank you.